The stars belonged to the Ascendants. They had always belonged to them for as long as anyone could remember. For 200,000 years they had ruled the galaxy with power that seemed like magic. They could move planets with their minds. They could make stars burn brighter or dimmer. They could live for thousands of years without growing old. To the younger species of the galaxy, they were gods. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, watching the impossible ship approach. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The Ascendant vessel didn't follow the normal rules of physics. It seemed to be in several places at once, flickering like a candle flame. Reality itself bent around it. "They're hailing us," said her communications officer, his voice shaking slightly. Sarah took a deep breath. This was it. Humanity's first contact with the rulers of the galaxy. Earth had only discovered faster-than-light travel 5 years ago. They were children compared to these ancient beings. "Put them through," she said. The view screen filled with a figure that looked almost human, but not quite. It was tall and thin, with skin that seemed to glow from within. Its eyes were pure silver without pupils. When it spoke, its voice echoed in a way that made Sarah's teeth hurt. "I am Envoy Talseth of the Ascendants. You are the species called humans. You will kneel." The bridge crew looked at Sarah. Some of the younger officers looked ready to obey. After all, what else could you do when a god gave you an order? Sarah stayed standing. "I'm Captain Sarah Chen of Earth. It's an honor to meet you. We'd like to open diplomatic relations." Talseth tilted his head like a bird examining an insect. "You do not understand. This is not a negotiation. All species kneel before the Ascendants. It is the natural order." "With respect," Sarah said carefully. "We don't kneel to anyone. We'd prefer to talk as equals." The silence that followed felt like it lasted forever. The Ascendant envoy stared at her with those silver eyes. Then, to her surprise, it laughed. The sound was like music and breaking glass mixed together. "Equals? You have been in space for 5 of your years. We have ruled the stars for 200,000. Your technology is primitive. Your lifespans are brief. You are insects comparing yourselves to dragons." "Maybe," Sarah admitted. "But we're insects who'd like to be friends, not servants." Talseth's smile faded. "The High Arbiter will want to meet you. He finds your ignorance amusing. We will visit your homeworld. We will show you what the Ascendants truly are. Then you will kneel like all the others." The transmission ended. Sarah let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. "Captain," her first officer said quietly, "did we just make an enemy of the most powerful beings in the galaxy?" "I don't know," Sarah said. "But I know humanity didn't crawl out of the mud just to bow to someone else." 3 days later, the Ascendant fleet arrived at Earth. There were 12 ships, each one impossible in its own way. They didn't orbit the planet. They simply floated above the major cities, defying gravity. High Arbiter Velkoroth himself led the delegation to Earth. He was ancient beyond measure, his face lined with centuries of power and pride. He came to the United Nations building in New York, where representatives from every nation on Earth waited to meet him. "People of Earth," Velkoroth said, his voice filling the assembly hall without speakers, "we welcome you to the galactic community. For 200,000 years, we have guided the younger species. We have brought order to chaos. We have prevented wars. We have cured diseases. We ask only for your respect and loyalty in return." The Secretary General of the UN stepped forward. "We're grateful for this contact. We have much to learn from you. But we must ask, what exactly do you mean by loyalty?" Velkoroth smiled like a father explaining something simple to a child. "You will acknowledge our authority. You will contribute resources to the greater good. You will follow our laws. In return, we will protect you and share some of our knowledge. This is how it has always been." "That sounds like subjugation," said the Secretary General carefully. "It is called civilization," Velkoroth replied. "Come, let us show you what you will gain." What followed was a display of power that left humanity speechless. The Ascendants terraformed Mars in 6 hours. Where there had been a dead red desert, now there was an atmosphere and liquid water. They moved asteroids into orbit around Earth like children arranging toys. They cured cancer in every hospital patient on the planet with a single pulse of energy. "You see," Velkoroth said, "we are not tyrants. We are guardians. We have the power to give you paradise. All we ask is that you accept your place in the natural order." But even as people around the world celebrated the miracles, something else was happening. In laboratories and research centers, scientists were recording everything. Dr. James Okafor, one of Earth's top physicists, watched the data streams with intense focus. "It's not magic," he whispered to his colleague. "It's technology. Incredibly advanced, but still technology. Look at these quantum signatures. They're manipulating space-time through some kind of field generator. And that healing pulse, it's targeted nanomachines too small to see. So they can be understood?" his colleague asked. "Everything can be understood," Dr. Okafor said. "And if it can be understood, it can be replicated." The next day, Sarah Chen was called to a meeting with the Earth Defense Council. Velkaroth was there, along with representatives from other alien species who had already accepted ascendant rule. There was Ambassador Kiev, a reptilian being whose people had served the Ascendants for 50,000 years. There was Trade Minister Zolva, whose insectoid species had been vassals for 30,000 years. "Captain Chen," Velkaroth said, "your superiors have informed us that Earth requires more time to consider our offer. This is unusual, but we are patient. We will give you 1 month to make your decision." "That's generous," Sarah said carefully. "But I have a question. What happens if we say no?" The room went silent. Ambassador Kiev looked horrified. Trade Minister Zolva's antennae twitched nervously. "No species has ever said no," Velkaroth said slowly. "The Ascendants bring only benefits. Why would anyone refuse?" "I'm just asking hypothetically," Sarah said. Velkaroth's silver eyes narrowed. "If a species cannot be guided, it must be contained. For the good of all. But this will not happen. You are intelligent beings. You will see reason." After the meeting, Ambassador Kiev approached Sarah privately. His scales were pale with fear. "Captain, please," he whispered. "Do not anger them. My people once thought as you do. We believed we could remain independent. The Ascendants, they did not destroy us, but they made it very clear what would happen if we continued to resist. We lost 17 colony worlds in demonstrations of their power. All we had to do was kneel and the destruction stopped." "I'm sorry that happened to your people," Sarah said sincerely. "Then learn from our mistake," Kiev begged. "They are gods, Captain. You cannot fight gods." Sarah looked up at the sky, where the Ascendant ship still floated, impossible and beautiful. "Maybe not," she said quietly. "But I'm starting to think gods are just people who've convinced everyone else they can't be questioned." That night she sent a message to Dr. Okafor's research team. 3 words. Keep studying them. 1 month later, Earth's answer was delivered to High Arbiter Velkaroth. Sarah Chen delivered it personally. "We're honored by your offer," she said. "But humanity must respectfully decline. We'd like to remain independent and trade with you as equals." For the first time in thousands of years, Velkaroth felt something he'd almost forgotten. Anger. "You refuse paradise?" he said, his voice cold. "You choose hardship over guidance?" "We choose freedom over comfort," Sarah said. "But we'd still like to be friends." Velkaroth stood and reality seemed to shudder around him. "Very well. If you will not accept our generosity, you will learn why the galaxy kneels. We will return, and you will beg for the chance to serve us." As the Ascendant fleet departed, Sarah watched them go. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady when she spoke. "Impressive display," she said to her bridge crew. "Now let's show them what humanity can do when someone tells us we can't do something." The war that would shake the galaxy to its foundations had just begun, and the gods had no idea what they'd awakened. 6 months after Earth refused to kneel, the Ascendants expected humanity to be begging for mercy. Instead, they found something that confused them. Humanity was thriving. High Arbiter Velkaroth reviewed the reports with growing irritation. The humans had established trade routes with minor species that the Ascendants had deemed too insignificant to bother with. They were building new colonies at an alarming rate. And most troubling of all, their technology was advancing impossibly fast. "How is this possible?" he demanded of his council. "We have cut them off from Ascendant knowledge. We have blocked their access to major trade lanes. They should be struggling." "They are. Creative, my lord," one of his advisors said carefully. "They find solutions where we see only problems. They trade things we consider worthless for things they need, and they learn very quickly." In truth, humanity was learning faster than anyone realized. Dr. James Okafor led a team of 10,000 scientists in what they called the Prometheus Project. Their job was simple: figure out how the Ascendant's technology worked. "Look at this," Dr. Okafor said to his team, displaying a hologram of data they'd collected during the Mars terraforming. They manipulate quantum fields to create what looks like instantaneous change. But there's a pattern, a mathematical structure underlying everything they do. Can we replicate it? Asked Dr. Sarah Kim, his chief engineer. Not yet. Their technology is thousands of years ahead of ours, but we don't need to match them. We just need to understand the principles. Then we can find our own way to do the same things. It took them 4 months to create their first quantum field manipulator. It was massive, required a nuclear power plant to run, and could barely move a grain of sand. But it worked. The Ascendants do this with their minds, Dr. Kim said, staring at their creation. No, Dr. Okafor corrected. They do this with implants so small we can't see them, connected to a massive computational network hidden throughout the galaxy. They just make it look like they're doing it with their minds. It's a magic trick, and we've just figured out the secret. Meanwhile, Admiral Sarah Chen, promoted after her successful first contact, was preparing for the conflict she knew was coming. The Ascendants had imposed economic sanctions on Earth. They'd declared human ships unwelcome in major trading hubs. They were squeezing, trying to make humanity submit without direct violence. They're used to species that break under pressure, she told her staff. They don't understand that humans get stubborn when someone pushes us. The breaking point came at Europa Station, humanity's mining outpost on Jupiter's moon. An Ascendant enforcement ship arrived and demanded the humans abandon the station. It was technically in violation of some ancient law about resource extraction. The station commander, a tough woman named Commander Rita Vasquez, sent back a simple message. No, the Ascendant ship fired a warning shot that vaporized a nearby asteroid. Leave now, or we will remove you, the Ascendant captain said. Commander Vasquez looked at her crew of 200 miners and engineers. They looked scared, but none of them suggested surrendering. Listen carefully, she broadcast back. This station has 40 mining drones rigged to explode. If you attack us, we'll detonate them all and turn this moon into a debris field. Your fancy ship might survive, but the damage will cost you millions to repair. We've got nothing but time and spite. How about you leave and tell your boss that humans don't scare easy? The Ascendant captain was shocked. Species didn't threaten Ascendants. That's not how things worked. He called for backup. 3 more Ascendant ships arrived. They were preparing to disable the station when humanity's response fleet jumped into the system. Admiral Chen herself led 12 human warships, their weapons armed and ready. This is Admiral Chen to Ascendant forces. Europa Station is under Earth's protection. You can leave peacefully, or we can discuss this the hard way. You would fight us? The Ascendant fleet commander asked, genuinely confused. We could destroy you all. Probably, Chen agreed. But it won't be clean. It won't be easy. And we'll make sure everyone in the galaxy hears about how the mighty Ascendants needed 4 ships to crush a mining station. Is that really the story you want to tell? The 2 fleets faced each other for 3 hours. Then, to everyone's surprise, the Ascendant ships withdrew. This is not over, the Ascendant commander warned. It never is, Chen replied. The Europa incident, as it became known, changed everything. For the first time in millennia, the Ascendants had backed down. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Other species watched and wondered. If the humans could stand up to the Ascendants, what did that mean? Ambassador Kiev, the reptilian diplomat who had warned Sarah about angering the Ascendants, watched the footage of the standoff over and over. His world had surrendered after seeing 17 colonies destroyed. The humans had faced down 4 warships with nothing but determination and bluff. What are they? He whispered to himself. Belkoroth was not taking the humiliation well. He called an emergency council meeting. This cannot stand, he declared. The humans must be taught their place. If we allow this defiance, others will follow. The entire order we have built will collapse. Perhaps we should negotiate, suggested one of the younger council members. The humans are clearly not going to submit easily. Maybe an equal partnership. Equals? Belkoroth's voice made the chamber shake. We are Ascendants. We have guided the galaxy for 200,000 years. These apes have been in space for 5 years. They are not our equals. But even as he raged, a small part of Belkoroth felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries. Uncertainty. The confrontation everyone feared came 3 months later. A human exploration ship, the Discovery, was mapping a system at the edge of Ascendant space. An Ascendant patrol found them and ordered them to leave. We're in neutral space, Captain Rodriguez of the Discovery replied. We have every right to be here. The Ascendants disagreed. They opened fire. The Discovery was fast, but not fast enough. The Ascendant weapons tore through its shields. The ship was dying. "All hands, abandon ship," Rodriguez ordered. "Deploy all drones." The Discovery had 30 exploration drones. In their last moments, the crew reprogrammed them. Not for exploration anymore, for attack. The drones swarmed the Ascendant ship like angry wasps. They were tiny, barely more than cameras and engines. But they were fast and fearless. They crashed into the Ascendant ship's weapon ports. They tangled in its sensor arrays. They didn't destroy it, but they damaged it. And in that chaos, something unprecedented happened. The Discovery's crew escaped in their life pods. They all survived, but 3 Ascendants died when one of the drones breached their ship's hull. When Velkaroth heard the news, he stood motionless for 10 minutes. His advisors waited in terrified silence. "They killed us," he finally said. "Mortals killed Ascendants." "It was an accident, my lord," an advisor said quickly. "The drones weren't meant to." "They killed us," Velkaroth repeated. "After 200,000 years, these primitives made us bleed." He turned to his council, and his silver eyes blazed with cold fire. "Declare humanity a rogue species. They will be eliminated. Not subjugated, not absorbed, destroyed. Send the message to every corner of the galaxy. The Ascendants have passed judgment." The decree went out across faster-than-light communication networks. Humanity was to be removed from the galaxy. The Ascendants would mobilize their full military might for the first time in 50,000 years. Ambassador Kiev read the decree in his quarters. His hands shook. He had seen what the Ascendants could do when truly angered. He thought about contacting Admiral Chen, warning her, but that would be treason against the beings he'd worshipped his whole life. Instead, he did something he hadn't done in years. He prayed, not to the Ascendants, to whatever power in the universe might help the humans survive what was coming. On Earth, Admiral Chen received the news calmly. She'd been expecting this. "How long do we have?" she asked her intelligence officer. 3 months before their main fleet arrives. Maybe 4. Then we'd better get to work." She opened a channel to every human colony, every ship, every station. "This is Admiral Chen. The Ascendants have declared war on humanity. They think they can crush us because we're young. Because we're small. Because we don't have their power." She paused. "They're about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon isn't technology. It's the fact that we don't know when to quit." In his laboratory, Dr. Okafor listened to the speech and smiled grimly. His team had just achieved a breakthrough. They'd cracked the quantum encryption the Ascendants used to communicate with their technology network. "We can see it now," he told Dr. Kim. "The whole system they use to power their miracles. It's beautiful, complex, and it has weaknesses. Can we exploit those weaknesses?" she asked. Dr. Okafor pulled up a star map showing the invisible network that spanned the galaxy. Nodes and connections, all of it hidden, all of it essential to Ascendant power. "Oh yes," he said. "We can definitely exploit them." The message Admiral Chen sent that night reached every species in the galaxy, not just humanity. It was simple and direct. "To all who hear this, the Ascendants would have you believe they are gods. But we have fought them. We have made them bleed. We have made them afraid. They are not gods. They are just people with good technology and a lot of practice at making others bow." The Ascendant war fleet assembled at the edge of human space. It was the largest military force they'd gathered in 50,000 years. 300 ships, each one capable of destroying planets. High Arbiter Velkaroth commanded the fleet personally. He would show the galaxy what happened to those who defied the gods. "We will make an example of them," he told his captains. "Swift, total, merciful in its speed. The humans will simply cease to exist." But Admiral Sarah Chen had spent the last 3 months preparing for this moment. She'd learned everything she could about how the Ascendants fought. They relied on overwhelming force. They would appear, demonstrate their power, and expect immediate surrender. They'd forgotten how to fight against an enemy who wouldn't give up. "They think like gods," she told her commanders. "Distant. Above it all. They've never had to fight dirty, but we're not trying to be gods. We're just trying to survive, and humans are very good at surviving." The first battle was at Proxima Centauri, humanity's second colony. 20,000 people lived there, building a new world from nothing. When the Ascendant fleet arrived, Velkaroth expected to find terrified colonists begging for mercy. Instead, he found an empty colony. "Where are they?" demanded Velkaroth. His sensors officer studied the readings. The colony is deserted, my lord. All life support is running, but there are no human life signs. It's as if they vanished. They ran, Velkaroth said with satisfaction. They finally understand fear. Destroy the colony anyway. Let it serve as a warning. As the Ascendant ships moved into position, Admiral Chen watched from a hidden observation post in the outer system. Everything was going according to plan. They're all clustered together, her tactical officer reported. Exactly where we wanted them. Good, Chen said quietly. Execute Operation Prometheus. What happened next was something the galaxy had never seen before. The star Proxima Centauri itself exploded, not naturally. Humanity had spent 3 months turning the star into a weapon. Dr. Okafor's team had placed quantum destabilizers deep in the star's core. They'd turned it into a bomb and timed it perfectly. The explosion caught half the Ascendant fleet. Ships that had existed for thousands of years simply ceased to exist. 150 vessels destroyed in an instant. Velkaroth's ship survived because it had been hanging back, but he watched in horror as his fleet burned. Impossible, he whispered. They destroyed their own star, their own colony. My lord, we're detecting FTL signatures, his sensor officer said. The humans, they evacuated everyone through hidden jump gates. The colony was a trap. For the first time in his long life, Velkaroth felt genuine fear. These beings had sacrificed their own star system just to hurt him. What kind of species did that? The news of the Battle of Proxima Centauri spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. The reactions were mixed. The humans are insane, said Trade Minister Zulva to his council. They destroyed their own system. What will they destroy next? But Ambassador Kiev saw something different. He'd pulled up the recordings of the battle and watched them over and over. Especially the final message Admiral Chen had broadcast before the star exploded. All Proxima colonists have been safely evacuated. No human lives were lost. But if you want to take our worlds, you'll have to pay a price in blood. We won't make it easy. We won't make it clean. And we definitely won't kneel. Kiev realized something that made his scales tingle. The humans hadn't sacrificed anything. They'd saved their people and still hurt the Ascendants. They were fighting smarter, not harder. And the Ascendants, the beings he'd worshipped as gods his whole life, were bleeding. Velkaroth returned to the Ascendant homeworld in disgrace. He'd lost half his fleet. The council was in chaos. We should negotiate, one member said. The humans have proven they're dangerous. Perhaps we should acknowledge them as equals and never. Velkaroth's rage made the air shimmer. We are Ascendants. We do not negotiate with insects. We will gather every ship, every weapon, every resource. We will crush humanity so completely that no other species ever dares to defy us again. But even as he spoke, something was changing in the galaxy. Other vassal species had watched the Battle of Proxima Centauri. They'd seen the mighty Ascendant fleet broken, and they'd started asking questions. If the humans can fight back, whispered a young Silurian scholar, maybe we can too. The Ascendants can bleed, murmured a Vex engineer. They're not actually gods. These whispers reached Admiral Chen through her network of spies and allies. She realized the war wasn't just about humanity anymore. It was about whether the galaxy would remain enslaved or choose freedom. Dr. Okafor's team was working around the clock. They'd continued studying the Ascendant Technology Network, and they'd discovered something crucial. Look at this. Dr. Okafor showed Admiral Chen a holographic map of the galaxy. Scattered throughout it were thousands of small nodes invisible to normal sensors. This is what gives the Ascendants their power. These relay stations amplify and focus quantum energy. Without them, their technology doesn't work properly. Can we destroy them? Chen asked. Better. We can hack them. We've learned their quantum language. We can send commands through their own network. Chen smiled. Then let's teach the gods what it feels like to have their prayers go unanswered. The operation took 2 months to prepare. Human teams, working with a growing number of alien allies, positioned themselves near key relay stations throughout the galaxy. These weren't the vassal species' military forces. Those were still loyal to the Ascendants. These were individuals, scientists who wanted to know the truth, engineers who were tired of being controlled, ordinary people who'd started believing that gods shouldn't exist. Ambassador Kiev was one of them. He'd made his choice. He'd contacted Admiral Chen secretly and offered his help. I have spent 50 years worshipping them, he told her. 50 years believing they were wise and benevolent. But wise beings don't need to rule through fear. Benevolent beings don't demand worship. I was wrong. My people were wrong, and I want to help make it right. It's going to be dangerous, Chen warned him, I know, but I'd rather die free than live as a slave. The attack began simultaneously across 50 star systems. Human ships, many of them modified civilian vessels crewed by volunteers, struck at the relay stations. They weren't trying to destroy them. They were uploading Dr. Okafor's virus. The virus was elegant. It didn't shut down the Ascendant network. It just made it unreliable. Commands would be delayed. Power fluctuations would occur. The careful quantum balance that made their technology work would become unstable. On the Ascendant homeworld, Velkoroth was in his personal chamber when he felt it. A sudden weakness. His body, kept young for 10,000 years by Ascendant technology, suddenly felt heavy. His hands, which could usually manipulate gravity with a thought, felt normal. Mortal. What's happening? He demanded, stumbling to his communication console. The reports came flooding in. All across Ascendant space, their technology was failing. Ships were losing power. Medical treatments were becoming unstable. The quantum network that had supported their civilization for 200,000 years was compromised. The humans, an advisor said, checking the data. They've infiltrated our network. They're sending interference patterns through our own relay stations. They're turning our greatest strength into a weakness. Velkoroth looked at his hands. For the first time in millennia, he could see age spots forming. His immortality was fading. Fix it, he ordered. Shut down the affected relays. Reboot the system. We can't, my lord. The virus adapts. Every time we block one attack vector, it finds another. And the humans keep uploading new versions. We'd have to shut down the entire network to purge it. Then do that, my lord. If we shut down the network, all Ascendant technology stops working. Every ship, every medical facility, every power station, everything. Velkoroth understood. The Ascendants had become so dependent on their network that they couldn't function without it. They'd built themselves a throne on a foundation of quantum sand, and the humans had found a way to make it shift beneath them. They've made us mortal, he whispered. The crisis spread across the galaxy. Ascendant forces began withdrawing, trying to protect their critical infrastructure. Ships that had been enforcing their will on dozens of worlds suddenly abandoned their posts. And into that vacuum, revolution bloomed. Ambassador Kiev stood before the Silurian High Council. They'd tried to have him arrested for treason. Instead, he'd broadcast his speech to every Silurian on every world. For 50,000 years we have served the Ascendants. They told us they were gods, that we needed their guidance, their protection. But I have seen them bleed. I have seen them fail. I have seen them afraid. They are not gods. They never were. They're just the first species to find ancient technology and use it to enslave everyone else. His voice grew stronger. The humans showed us something important. Not that we should fight, but that we have the right to be free, to make our own choices, to stand on our own. I say we take that right back across the Silurian worlds. The response was instantaneous. Millions of people took to the streets, not in violence but in refusal. They stopped sending resources to the Ascendants. They stopped following their commands. They simply said no, and they weren't alone. Dozens of species began doing the same. The weapon that could destroy Earth was called the Sunbreaker. It had been built 200,000 years ago during the last Great War before the Ascendants achieved total dominance. Since then, it had sat in storage, a reminder of a time when the Ascendants had actually needed weapons instead of just their presence. High Arbiter Velkoroth stood before it in the hidden military vault. It was a sphere of black metal 10 meters across, covered in symbols that hurt to look at. Inside was technology that could tear a star apart from the inside. My lord, one of his advisors said carefully, if we use this weapon, there will be no going back. The other species will see us as monsters, not gods. They already see us as monsters, Velkoroth replied, his voice hollow. In the 3 weeks since the humans had corrupted the quantum network, he'd aged more than he had in the previous millennium. Gray streaked his hair now. Lines creased his face. Better to be feared than mocked. The humans made us bleed. Now we'll show them that even bleeding gods are still gods. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Indomitable, studying the intelligence reports. Earth had 3 weeks, maybe 4, before the Sunbreaker arrived. The weapon was being transported aboard the Ascendant's most powerful warship, the Eternal Throne, protected by the last intact battle group Vel'Korath could muster. "We can't stop it with conventional weapons," Dr. Okafor told her via video link. "The Eternal Throne's shields could withstand a nova, and the Sunbreaker itself is quantum locked. We can't hack it like we did the relay stations." "So we're out of options?" Chen asked. "I didn't say that." Okafor's eyes had the gleam they got when he'd found a solution to an impossible problem. "We can't stop the weapon, but we can steal it." Chen blinked. "Steal it? From the most heavily defended ship in the galaxy? The Eternal Throne is powerful, but it's old. 200,000 years old, and its security systems are part of the quantum network we've been sabotaging. The Ascendants have been so busy trying to fix critical systems that they haven't patched everything. There's a 3.7-second window every time the ship's shield cycle where a small craft could slip through." 3.7 seconds, Chen repeated. "That's impossible." "That's what they said about fighting the Ascendants," Okafor replied with a grim smile. "The mission was given to Lieutenant Marcus Stone and his team of 12. They were volunteers, every one of them. They knew it was likely a one-way trip. Our job is simple," Stone told his team as they boarded their stealth shuttle. "Get through the shields, board the Eternal Throne, steal a superweapon, and get out." Just another Tuesday, his team laughed nervously. They'd trained for 2 weeks, running simulations until they could do it in their sleep. But simulations weren't reality. The Eternal Throne moved through space like a dark star, its escorts arranged in perfect formation around it. Vel'Korath himself was aboard, determined to personally deliver humanity's death sentence. "This is for the order we built," he said to the image of Earth on his view screen. "For 200,000 years of peace. You could have been part of something greater. Instead, you chose chaos. Now you'll serve as a warning to all who come after." He didn't notice the tiny shuttle slipping between his escort ships. He didn't see it match velocities with the Eternal Throne, waiting for that brief moment when the shield cycled. 3.7 seconds. That's all the time they had. Stone piloted the shuttle himself. His hands were steady, but his heart hammered in his chest. The shield frequency was pulsing on his display. Timing had to be perfect. 3, 2, 1, now. He punched the throttle. The shuttle shot forward through the gap in the shields. For a terrible moment, he thought they'd miscalculated. Then they were through, clamping onto the Eternal Throne's hull. "We're in," he reported. "Beginning infiltration." Breaking into the ship was surprisingly easy. The internal security systems were glitching, affected by the quantum virus. Doors opened when they shouldn't. Alarms failed to sound. The humans moved through the ship like ghosts. They found the Sunbreaker in the main cargo bay surrounded by guards. But the guards were arguing with each other, distracted by equipment failures throughout the ship. "This is humiliating," one guard said. "Our weapons keep losing power. How are we supposed to protect something when our own equipment doesn't work?" Stone's team struck fast. Non-lethal weapons. Humanity had learned that killing Ascendants only made them martyrs. The guards went down without raising an alarm. "Package secured," Stone reported. "Beginning extraction." That's when everything went wrong. Vel'Korath had been monitoring the ship's systems, and he noticed the anomaly in the cargo bay. He realized immediately what was happening. "Intruders on board," he roared. "Lock down all hangar bays." "Find them!" Stone's team ran through the corridors with the Sunbreaker, smaller than expected but still heavy, carried between them. Behind them, they could hear the sound of pursuit. "We're not going to make it to the shuttle," one of his team members said. "Then we find another way out," Stone replied. They found it in an escape pod bay. The pods were small, meant for 1 or 2 Ascendants in an emergency. Fitting 14 humans and a superweapon was going to be tight. "Everybody in," Stone ordered. "It's going to be cozy." As they crammed into the pod, Vel'Korath burst into the bay. He looked old now, his power fading, but his eyes blazed with fury. "You dare," he shouted. "You crawl onto my ship like vermin. You steal from gods." Stone looked at him from the pod's doorway. "You're not gods. You're just old, and you're angry because you know it." He hit the launch button. The pod shot out into space. Vel'Korath stood in the empty bay, trembling with rage and something else. Something he hadn't felt in thousands of years. Helplessness. "Kill them," he ordered quietly. "Destroy that pod." But the Eternal Throne's weapons were glitching. By the time they got a target lock, the pod was already being picked up by a human rescue ship. Admiral Chen watched the rescue on her screen and allowed herself a small smile. Mission accomplished. Now comes the hard part. She was right. With the Sunbreaker in human hands, Velkoroth's last threat was gone. But he wasn't ready to surrender. He gathered what remained of his forces and set course for the Ascendant homeworld. "If I cannot rule, I will at least die with dignity," he told his followers. "We will make our stand at Sacred Anchor. Let them come." The Battle of Sacred Anchor began 3 weeks later. Admiral Chen brought every ship humanity had, joined by vessels from the newly liberated species. Ambassador Kiev commanded a Silurian battle group. Other species sent what they could. It was the largest fleet ever assembled by the lesser species. The Ascendant defenders were outnumbered 10-1, but they fought with the desperation of beings who had nothing left to lose. The space around Sacred Anchor burned with weapons fire. Ships on both sides died. The fighting was fierce and brutal, nothing like the clean displays of power the Ascendants used to demonstrate. On the Indomitable, Chen coordinated the assault, but she wasn't trying to destroy Sacred Anchor. She was trying to broadcast something. "Dr. Okafor, are you ready?" she asked. "Ready," he replied from his lab on Earth. "Broadcasting now." Across every communication channel, on every world in the galaxy, a message began playing. It was a recording Dr. Okafor's team had reconstructed from ancient Ascendant archives they'd hacked during the chaos. The message showed the truth. The Ascendants hadn't always been gods. 200,000 years ago, they'd been explorers, scientists. They'd found ruins of a civilization even older than them. And in those ruins, they'd found the quantum network, the immortality treatments, all the technology that made them seem divine. They'd taken that technology and decided to keep it for themselves. They'd used it to conquer every other species they met. And over time, they'd convinced themselves they deserved it, that they were superior, that they were gods but they weren't gods. They were thieves who'd worn their stolen crown for so long they'd forgotten it didn't belong to them. The revelation shook the galaxy. Even species still loyal to the Ascendants began to question. If their gods had stolen their power, what did that make them? On Sacred Anchor, Velkoroth watched the broadcast in his throne room. He could feel his empire crumbling, not from military defeat but from the death of faith. "It doesn't matter," he said to his reflection. "We took the power and used it well. We brought order to chaos. That's what matters." But even he didn't believe it anymore. The final confrontation came when Admiral Chen landed on Sacred Anchor with a battalion of Marines. They fought through the palace, not easily, but inevitably. The Ascendants were warriors, but they were out of practice. The humans were survivors who'd been fighting for their lives for 2 years. Chen found Velkoroth in his throne room. He sat on his throne looking every one of his 10,000 years. His silver eyes had dulled to gray. "So you've come to kill me," he said quietly. "No," Chen replied. "I've come to offer you a choice. Trial or exile. Face justice for what you've done or leave and never come back." "Justice?" Velkoroth laughed bitterly. "What do you know of justice? We brought civilization to the galaxy. We prevented wars. We cured diseases. Yes, we demanded worship, but we gave so much in return." "You gave scraps from your table and called it generosity," Chen said. "You kept every species dependent on you. You never let anyone grow." The war ended not with a bang, but with a choice. Velkoroth chose exile over trial. He was sent to a small world on the galaxy's edge, where he would live out the rest of his natural life. No technology to extend it. No power to command others. Just an old man waiting to die. Admiral Sarah Chen watched his ship depart from Sacred Anchor and felt no triumph. Only exhaustion. "What happens now?" her first officer asked. "Now we figure out how to build something better," she said. The Ascendant Empire was gone, but it left behind a galaxy that didn't know how to function without masters. For 200,000 years, every species had been told what to do, where to go, what to think. Freedom was terrifying when you'd never had to make your own choices. The first crisis came 2 months after the war ended. On the world of Tellus Prime, a violent faction seized power, claiming they would rule as the Ascendants had. On Vex Station, different ethnic groups that had been forced to cooperate under Ascendant rule began fighting each other. Chaos spread. "We have to intervene," Trade Minister Zolva said during the Emergency Council meeting. Representatives from 30 species had gathered on Sacred Anchor to discuss the future. "Without order, the galaxy will tear itself apart." "Order?" Chen asked. "You mean a new empire?" A new set of gods? I mean structure, rules, someone to keep the peace. Ambassador Kiev, now representing the Silurian Confederacy, spoke up. If we choose a single species to rule, we've learned nothing. The Ascendants started as peacekeepers too. Look what they became. Then what do you suggest? Zolva demanded. That we let chaos reign? No, said a new voice. Dr. James Okafor had traveled from Earth for this meeting. We suggest something that's never been tried before. Actual democracy. Every species has a voice. Every world has representation. Decisions are made together, not by one ruler. That's impossible, scoffed a delegate from the Korthai. There are thousands of species. Millions of worlds. How could such a system work? Slowly, Chen admitted. Messily. There will be arguments and compromises and frustrations, but at least it will be ours. Not something imposed by gods, but something we build together. The debate lasted 3 weeks. Some species wanted a strong central authority. Others wanted complete independence. The humans kept pushing for the middle ground, a federation where each species kept its autonomy but agreed to common laws and mutual defense. Finally, Ambassador Kiev stood and addressed the assembly. 2 years ago, I would have said this was impossible. I believed we needed the Ascendants to guide us, to protect us from ourselves. He paused, his scales shifting colors with emotion. But the humans taught me something. They showed me that the hardest thing and the right thing are often the same. Building a true democracy will be hard, harder than kneeling. But I'm tired of kneeling. I vote yes. One by one, other delegates joined him. Not all of them. Some species chose isolation, unwilling to trust after millennia of servitude. But enough agreed. Enough to try. The Galactic Commonwealth was born on a cold morning on Sacred Anchor. The throne room where Velkoroth had ruled for centuries was torn down. In its place, they built a circular chamber where representatives could meet as equals. No throne, no hierarchy. Just a round table that seemed to go on forever. Chen was offered the position of First Chancellor. She refused. Humanity didn't free the galaxy to rule it, she said firmly. We freed it to share it. Let someone else lead. We'll just be one voice among many. Ambassador Kiev became the first chancellor instead, elected by the founding members. At his inauguration, he said something that made Chen smile. For 200,000 years, we looked up to the gods. Now we look across at each other. It's a better view. But not everyone was happy with the new order. Some ascendants refused exile and went into hiding. Some vassal species, so used to being controlled, begged for someone to tell them what to do. And some humans thought Earth should take the ascendants' place. Chen found herself dealing with one such group 6 months after the Commonwealth formed. A human admiral named Marcus Cray had taken 3 warships and declared himself protector of the lesser species. They need us, Cray told Chen when she confronted him via communication. We're the ones who freed them. We're the ones with the strength to keep order. That's exactly what the Ascendants said, Chen replied coldly. We're not like them. We actually care about these people. The Ascendants thought they cared too. That's how it starts, Marcus. You protect people, then you control them, then you own them. I won't let humanity become what we fought against. She gave him a choice, return to Earth for trial or become an outlaw. He chose to fight. It was brief and ugly. Chen disabled his ships without destroying them and brought him home in chains. At his trial, Cray was defiant. You're making a mistake. These species need leaders. They need partners, Chen corrected. And if you can't see the difference, you don't understand why we fought at all. Dr. Okafor faced a different challenge. With the Ascendant quantum network now available to everyone, technology was advancing rapidly. Too rapidly. Species that had been held at Bronze Age levels suddenly had access to weapons that could destroy planets. We need to control this, his research director said. Put limits on what technology can be shared. That's what the Ascendants did, Okafor replied. They controlled everything to keep people dependent. So we just let anyone have superweapons? Okafor thought for a long moment. No, but we don't control through force. We control through education. We teach responsibility along with technology. We help species understand what they're getting before they get it. It's slower. It's harder. But it's the only way that doesn't make us the new masters. A new university was established on what had been the Ascendant homeworld. Students from hundreds of species came to learn, not just technology but philosophy, ethics, history. They studied the Ascendants as a warning. This is what happens when one group decides they know best for everyone. Chen visited the university a year after its opening. She walked through the halls filled with young beings from across the galaxy, all learning together. A Silurian argued with a Vex about quantum theory. A human helped a Tellurian with a calculus problem. A Korthai student approached her shyly. "Admiral Chen, may I ask you something?" "Of course. Why did humans fight the Ascendants?" "You could have accepted their rule. You would have been comfortable, safe." Chen looked at the young student. "Because comfortable slavery is still slavery. Because safety that requires submission isn't worth having. Because we believe that everyone deserves the right to make their own mistakes and find their own way. Even if they make terrible mistakes, especially then. Because you can't learn wisdom from someone else. You have to earn it yourself." The student thanked her and hurried off to class. Chen watched them go and felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. 2 years after the fall of the Ascendants, Chen retired from the military. She was only 40 years old, but she'd lived a lifetime in those years. She returned to Earth, to the small town where she'd grown up. On her first morning home, a news broadcast showed the Commonwealth Assembly debating trade regulations. Species were arguing, compromising, occasionally getting angry with each other. It was messy and loud and chaotic. It was beautiful. Her old friend, now Dr. Sarah Kim, called to check on her. "Do you ever regret it?" Kim asked. "You could be running the galaxy right now. Instead, you're back home." "That's exactly why I don't regret it," Chen replied. "We didn't fight to trade one empire for another. We fought so everyone could go home and live their lives in peace, and do you think it will last?" "The Commonwealth?" Chen looked out her window at the Earth sky. "I don't know. Maybe it will. Maybe it won't. Maybe in 1,000 years they'll have forgotten why we fought and built a new empire. But at least we gave them the chance to be free. That's all anyone can do." On the edge of the galaxy, on a small world without a name, Velkaroth sat in a simple house and watched the sunset. He was dying. His body, deprived of the technology that had kept him alive for 10,000 years, was finally failing. He'd spent 2 years in exile, thinking about his long life, about the empire he'd built and the lie he'd told himself, that he was doing it for others, not for his own glory. A message came through on his simple communication device. It was from Admiral Chen. "I heard you're dying. I wanted to ask if there's anything you need." Velkaroth was surprised. After everything, she was offering kindness. "Why?" He asked. "Why do you care?" "Because you're not a god anymore. You're just a person, and people deserve dignity, even when they've done terrible things." Velkaroth thought about that. "I was wrong," he said finally. "I told myself we were helping, but we were just afraid. Afraid that if others became strong, they wouldn't need us. And then what would we be?" "You could have been teachers," Chen said gently. "Partners, friends, instead you chose to be gods." "That was your mistake." "Yes," Velkaroth agreed. "It was." He died 3 days later, the last of the High Arbiters. The galaxy barely noticed. They were too busy building their new future. 10 years after the war, Ambassador Kiev, now Chancellor Emeritus, having served his term, visited Earth for the anniversary celebration. He found Chen in her garden tending flowers. "I wanted to thank you," he said, "for everything." "You already did," Chen replied. "Several times.